Have you ever wondered what would happen if someone who had been dead for 4 days suddenly walked out of a tomb alive? Stay until the end, because this true biblical story reveals one of the greatest miracles ever witnessed, a miracle so powerful that it changed countless lives forever. What happened next shocked an entire town, strengthened the faith of many, and even caused powerful leaders to begin plotting against the man who performed it. In the peaceful village of Bethany, not far from Jerusalem, lived three siblings who shared an extraordinary friendship with Jesus Christ. Their names were Martha of Bethany, Mary of Bethany, and their brother Lazarus of Bethany. Their home was more than just a place to live. It was a place where Jesus often found rest after long days of teaching large crowds. Whenever he visited, they welcomed him with love, respect, and kindness. They believed in him with all their hearts and treasured every moment spent in his presence. Lazarus was known as a kind and respected man. He worked hard, cared deeply for his sisters, and was loved by everyone who knew him. Life in Bethany was peaceful, and the family enjoyed many happy days together. They never imagined that everything was about to change. One ordinary day, Lazarus became seriously ill. At first, Martha and Mary believed it was only a minor sickness. They cared for him, prepared food, gave him water, and prayed that he would recover. But instead of improving, his condition became worse with each passing hour. His breathing grew weaker. His strength slowly disappeared. The cheerful voice that once filled their home became quiet. Fear began to replace hope. Martha looked at her sister with tears in her eyes. "We must send for Jesus," she whispered. "Only he can help our brother." Mary immediately agreed. They knew that Jesus had healed the blind, made the lame walk, and even cleansed those suffering from terrible diseases. If anyone could save Lazarus, it was him. Without wasting another moment, they sent a messenger to find Jesus. The messenger hurried across dusty roads, determined to reach him as quickly as possible. After searching for some time, he finally found Jesus surrounded by his disciples and many people listening to his teachings. The exhausted messenger bowed respectfully and said, "Lord, the one you love is sick." Everyone expected Jesus to leave immediately. Instead, Jesus calmly replied, "This sickness will not end in death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it." Those words were difficult to understand. If Jesus loved Lazarus so much, why didn't he rush to Bethany? The disciples were puzzled, but they trusted him enough not to question his decision. Back in Bethany, Martha and Mary waited anxiously. Every sound outside made them wonder if Jesus had finally arrived. Every passing hour filled them with growing worry. They held Lazarus' hand, encouraged him to stay strong, and prayed with all their hearts. But the illness became even more severe. Lazarus struggled to breathe. His sisters watched helplessly as the life slowly faded from his body. Finally, the heartbreaking moment arrived. Lazarus took one final breath. Silence filled the room. Mary broke down in tears. Martha covered her face as overwhelming sorrow swept over her heart. Friends and neighbors gathered around them, mourning together. The man they loved was gone. Following Jewish custom, they carefully prepared Lazarus' body for burial. They wrapped him in clean linen cloths with fragrant spices. Many people from the village joined the funeral procession. Their cries echoed through the streets as they slowly carried Lazarus to the family tomb. A large stone was rolled across the entrance. Darkness covered the cave. The burial was complete. For long days began to pass. Inside the tomb, there was no sign of hope. Outside, Martha and Mary struggled to understand why Jesus had not come. Questions filled their minds. Did he not receive the message? Was he too far away? Or had he simply arrived too late? Their faith was being tested in ways they had never imagined. Meanwhile, Jesus remained where he was for 2 more days. Then he looked at his disciples and quietly said, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to wake him." The disciples misunderstood his words. "Lord," they answered, "if he is sleeping, he will get better." Jesus looked at them with compassion and spoke plainly. "Lazarus is dead." The disciples stood in stunned silence. Why had Jesus waited until after his friend died? They had no idea that they were about to witness a miracle unlike anything they had ever seen. Jesus then began the journey toward Bethany, knowing exactly what awaited him, while the village remained covered in grief, unaware that hope was already on its way. As Jesus and his disciples continued their journey toward Bethany, the atmosphere grew heavier with every step. Word of Lazarus' death had spread throughout the surrounding villages, and many mourners had already gathered to comfort Martha and Mary. The home that had once echoed with laughter was now filled with tears, quiet prayers, and the voices of grieving friends. When Jesus came near the village, someone recognized him from a distance and hurried to tell the sisters. "The teacher is here." The news reached Martha first. Without waiting another moment, she left the house and hurried to meet him. Mary remained inside, surrounded by family members and neighbors who were trying to comfort her. When Martha reached Jesus, emotion overwhelmed her. "Lord," she said, her voice trembling, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died." There was no anger in her words, only the pain of a heart that had been broken by loss. She believed Jesus had the power to heal Lazarus, but she could not understand why he had not come sooner. Then she added, with remarkable faith, "But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus looked at her with compassion. "Your brother will rise again." Martha nodded slowly. "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." She believed in the promise of eternal life, but she thought Jesus was speaking about the future. Then Jesus spoke words that would echo through history. "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never truly die." Do you believe this? Tears filled Martha's eyes. "Yes, Lord," she replied. "I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who has come into the world." With renewed hope, Martha returned to the house. Quietly, she found Mary and whispered, "The teacher is here, and he is asking for you." The moment Mary heard those words, she stood and hurried out to meet Jesus. The mourners followed her, thinking she was going back to the tomb to continue weeping. When Mary reached Jesus, she immediately fell at his feet. Through her tears she cried, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." The sorrow in her voice touched everyone present. The mourners also began to weep. The sound of crying filled the air. Jesus looked at Mary, then at the grieving crowd surrounding her. He saw their broken hearts. He felt their pain. Although he knew that joy was only moments away, he did not ignore their suffering. Deeply moved in his spirit, he asked, "Where have you laid him?" They answered, "Lord, come and see." Together they walked toward the tomb. The crowd followed in complete silence. Every step reminded Martha and Mary of the painful day they had buried their brother. Then, standing before the place where Lazarus had been laid, Jesus stopped. His eyes filled with tears. He wept. The people looked at one another in amazement. See how much he loved him, some whispered. Others questioned, could not this man, who opened the eyes of the blind, have kept Lazarus from dying? They still did not understand that Jesus had not come too late. He had come at exactly the right time. The miracle they were about to witness would reveal his power in a way no one could ever forget. Jesus wiped away his tears and walked toward the entrance of the tomb. A massive stone sealed the cave. Behind it lay the body of Lazarus, wrapped in burial cloths for 4 days. The crowd held its breath. No one knew that they were only moments away from witnessing one of the greatest miracles ever recorded. The crowd stood in complete silence as Jesus faced the entrance of the tomb. The heavy stone that sealed the cave seemed to be a final reminder that death had claimed its victory. For 4 long days, no one had entered. No one expected anyone to come out. To every person standing there, the story of Lazarus had already ended. Jesus looked at the stone and spoke with calm authority. Take away the stone. The command stunned the crowd. People looked at one another, uncertain of what to do. Then Martha stepped forward. Lord, she said gently, by this time there will be a strong odor, because he has been dead for 4 days. She knew the reality of death. She loved Jesus, but she also knew what waited inside that tomb. Jesus looked at her with compassion and said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? Those words strengthened her heart. Several men stepped forward and placed their hands against the heavy stone. With great effort, they pushed. The stone slowly rolled away. Its grinding sound echoed through the quiet hillside. The dark entrance of the tomb stood open before everyone. Many people stepped back. Some covered their noses. Others lowered their heads. The silence was overwhelming. Jesus lifted his eyes toward heaven and prayed aloud. Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the people standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me. Every eye remained fixed on him. Not a single voice could be heard. Even the wind seemed to stand still. Then Jesus stepped closer to the opening of the tomb. With a voice filled with divine authority, he called out, Lazarus, come out. His words echoed through the valley. For a brief moment, nothing happened. The crowd waited in complete silence. Then, from deep inside the tomb, a faint sound could be heard. Someone gasped. Another person pointed toward the entrance. A figure slowly emerged from the darkness, wrapped from head to toe in burial cloths. With a cloth covering his face, Lazarus stepped out of the tomb. The impossible had happened. Cries of astonishment filled the air. People stumbled backward in shock. Some fell to their knees. Others stood frozen, unable to believe what they were seeing. Mary covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. Martha stood speechless. The brother they had mourned, buried, and believed they would never see again was alive. The disciples stared in amazement. They had witnessed many miracles, but nothing compared to this. Death itself had obeyed the voice of Jesus. Then Jesus calmly said, unbind him and let him go. Several men approached Lazarus with trembling hands. They carefully removed the linen cloths wrapped around his body. Layer by layer, the grave clothes fell to the ground. Finally, they removed the cloth covering his face. Lazarus opened his eyes and looked at his sisters. For a moment, no one moved. Then Mary ran to him and embraced him with tears of overwhelming joy. Martha joined them, praising God with all her heart. The crowd erupted in celebration. Some shouted praises to God. Others wept openly. Many could only stand in awe of the miracle they had witnessed. News spread through Bethany with incredible speed. People ran through the streets crying, "Lazarus is alive." Families left their homes. Travelers hurried toward the village. Everyone wanted to see the man who had returned from the dead. Before the day ended, the miracle was being talked about throughout the entire region. Hundreds of witnesses had seen Lazarus buried. Now those same witnesses saw him alive. No one could deny what had happened. Many believed in Jesus because they had seen the glory of God with their own eyes. But while many hearts were filled with faith, others became filled with jealousy and fear. The religious leaders realized that this miracle would cause even more people to follow Jesus. Instead of celebrating the power of God, they began making plans to silence the one who had performed the miracle. They did not realize that every step they took would only fulfill God's perfect plan, a plan that would soon lead Jesus to the cross and then to his own glorious resurrection.